We are working on two 1933 Chrysler Imperial CQ Convertible Coupes here at the shop. Because they're Imperial, we call one Will and we call the other one Kate. Will is here in front of me and he's in Brewster green and we'll have black fenders. Kate is behind me and she will be completely monotone in Imperial maroon. Will is a little farther along because we started on him a little sooner and we are ready to start the engine. We want to run in the engine and do the break-in half an hour at about 1500 RPMs prior to assembling the front of the car. The cars have monstrous front fenders and dual side mounts, and we don't want to have to lean over that when it's discovered that we have a leaking oil line or anything else. So we want to do a lot of running and getting everything settled in before we put the front of the car together. And we're going to start that process today. When you start a brand new rebuild, you've assembled everything, you inevitably come up on leaking things and stuff like that. And so we're working on that today. We have done several steps in order to fire a freshly rebuilt engine. One important one is you don't want to start an engine that hasn't had its oil system primed. In order to do that on this car, we can't easily spin the oil pump. So we used an oil pressurizer, actually pressurize a tank with oil in it, plug it into the fitting where the oil pressure gauge goes, and under air pressure that'll shoot the oil into all the systems, and you know that everything has been pre-oiled. It's also a little bit of an advantage because it also exposes all your leaks too. So we had several lines that were flared fittings and some of those were leaking, and we've taken care of that. So hopefully we have a tight system prior to starting it up. For an engine to run, you have to have three things. You need to have fuel and air and spark, and they all have to be happening at the right time. In order to get the fuel and air mixture, you have the carburetor. We've had that professionally rebuilt and it is ready to go. And then the distributor has been stabbed. We put the engine on top dead center, number one, and with the timing marks on the flywheel on this car. And then we orient the distributor so that we are pointing at the spark plug that has the number one wire on it. And we go to the trouble of rotating the distributor drive so that the spark plug wire that the shop manual says is supposed to be number one is number one. But in general terms, that can be any of the plug wires. You just need to know which one it is. And then of course you need to know your firing order. You need to know the rotation of your distributor so that everything's run in the right direction and in the right order. So we've done all that setup. We've got number one on top dead center, and we've stabbed the distributor, and then for static timing we rotate the distributor so that the points are just about to open, and that static timing will be close enough for the engine to fire. So we've pressurized the oil, we've added a break-in oil additive. Flat tappet engines need to have a high zinc content for wear in. Our engine rebuilder requires a break-in additive for the first oil up through 200 miles, and then an oil change, and then a break-in additive for 500 miles, and then following that second oil change, our rebuilder allows any preferred oil after that. There's a lot of debate about whether zinc additives need to be used all the time, and our rebuilder, who would have to warranty this engine if it failed, does not require additive after the first and second oil change. But they do want a high zinc content additive in there for wear in. So we have set it all up. We have put an old ugly radiator on so that we have coolant, and mocked up a fuel tank so that we can see if this engine will fire. We have a temperature gauge and we have an oil pressure gauge set up so we can monitor those things while we do our running. So I've set up some jumper wires for spark because we don't have any wiring in the car yet or anything like that. Trusty ignition switch to jump the solenoid on the starter since nothing is hooked up. And we we have gone ahead and gotten fuel up to the fuel pump, so it's ready to start pumping to the carburetor right away. Got a little fuel here in a bottle to prime things with, and should be ready to start. Pretty good. A little more prime, get some fuel up to the carburetor. Well, that was a nice first start. We're going to make some adjustments to a few things and then continue on with our half hour of run in and